Welcome back, intrepid learners, to the deep dive.
Hello, everyone.
Today, we're embarking on an exploration of a topic that really challenges our understanding of, well, human experience and the cosmos itself.
It certainly does.
We're plunging into the profound and, let's be honest, often pretty disquieting world of alien abductions.
A topic that fascinates and unnerves in equal measure.
Exactly. And this isn't just about, sensational stories. It's about a persistent phenomenon that demands a closer look. And let me tell you, we have an absolute mountain of material to get through.
A huge amount.
So settle in, because this is going to be a thorough and, dare I say, a bit scary deep dive.
It can definitely be unsettling territory.
Our sources for today are, well, a stack of compelling testimonies, meticulous research, and some really insightful expert analyses.
A good mix to draw from.
And our mission, as always, is to extract the most important insights, those surprising facts, and help you understand this persistent, troubling phenomenon that has, frankly, captivated human imagination for centuries. Before we begin, just a gentle reminder to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. It really helps us keep bringing you these deep dives.
Keeps the lights on, so to speak.
Exactly. It's how you can continue to unlock more explorations into fascinating and sometimes, terrifying topics. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. It is indeed a subject that pushes the boundaries of our conventional understanding. It really prompts us to consider realities far beyond our everyday experience.
Absolutely. So, to begin, let's just start with the core concept. The fundamental idea that people across diverse cultures throughout history believe they've been secretly taken by, well, non-human entities.
Right.
Sounds like something pulled straight from science fiction, doesn't it?
It really does. But the sheer volume, the consistency, and often the traumatic nature of these claims, it demands a serious and objective examination.
So when we talk about the people involved, what terms do we use?
That's a crucial starting point. When you delve into these experiences, the individuals who report them are typically referred to as abductees or experiencers.
Okay, abductees or experiencers. Is there a difference?
There is, yeah. The term abductee often carries a connotation of victimization. It implies they were taken against their will, subjected to procedures, often left with deeply unsettling memories by some unknown intelligence.
Whether that's extraterrestrial, interdimensional?
Exactly, or even from another time entirely. But experiencer is a more modern, more inclusive term. It's broader. It acknowledges someone has encountered an intelligence, but it doesn't necessarily imply trauma or unwilling capture in every single case.
Okay, so it just signifies contact.
Right. A profound, often life-altering contact. You might also hear the term contactee, which was quite popular back in the 1950s and 60s.
I've heard that one.
But it's largely fallen out of vogue now. Experiencer is really the more appropriate and widely accepted term today, as, not everyone is taken in the classic sense, and it's not always against their express will.
So the emphasis isn't solely on trauma, but on the encounter itself. That distinction feels important for nuanced understanding. But beyond the terminology, what about the experience itself? Is there like a common pattern, a thread weaving through these incredibly diverse individual accounts? Or is each one just completely unique?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is that despite the deeply unique differences in each individual case, there is a remarkably strong common thread running through nearly all of them.
Really? Like what?
The study of the alien abduction phenomenon frequently begins with a UFO sighting. This initial sighting might occur surprisingly early in life, often in childhood.
In childhood, wow.
Yeah, and that first encounter can, quite unexpectedly, set the stage for a lifetime of subsequent, often recurring experiences.
So it's not always a one-off event?
Rarely. While many abductees remember their encounters consciously, with vivid, disturbing clarity, for many others, the memories are fragmented, hazy, or entirely suppressed.
Right, the famous missing time.
Exactly. In those instances, hypnotic regression is frequently employed as a therapeutic tool to help individuals access and reconstruct the details. It's quite common for people to go years, even decades, without fully realizing that an early childhood encounter laid the groundwork for a pattern of alien interactions throughout their lives.
That's incredible. Can you give an example?
Sure. Consider the case of one experiencer. They vividly recalled waking up late at night as a child, seeing this green, shimmering light pulsing outside their window. Strange, unnatural clouds billowing.
Okay.
Outside, a huge, silent craft with non-FAA standard lights that didn't match any known aircraft, hovered ominously. Their whole family saw this initial sighting, a clear event.
The whole family. Okay, that's significant.
Very. But years later, under hypnosis, a much more unsettling truth emerged. It turned out a smaller craft had detached from the main one, coming out of what they described as a tornado of smoke.
Whoa.
And then small, gray-skinned beings had taken both them and their sister for examination.
And the sister, did she remember?
Interestingly, the sister, despite witnessing the initial UFO, had paid little attention to it, apparently suppressing the more disturbing details. The experiencer described this chilling sensation of being pulled from bed, floating effortlessly 3 stories up.
Oh, yeah.
And feeling a strange, inexplicable stickiness pulled across their face before their memory just cuts out.
That missing time again. It's such a common, deeply unsettling element.
It really is a hallmark of these reported experiences.
But what truly makes you pause is how consistently these elements echo, not just in modern reports, but throughout our recorded history. It really begs the question, is this phenomenon actually new, or has humanity been grappling with encounters like this for centuries, just, interpreting them through different cultural lenses?
That's exactly the question. If we connect this to the broader tapestry of human history, the abduction phenomenon appears to have been going on for a very, very long time, stretching back perhaps even into antiquity.
Antiquity, like ancient civilizations.
Potentially, yes. When you delve into historical records, ancient mythologies, folklore from diverse cultures, you uncover these striking parallels that can be convincingly interpreted as paleo-abductions, or forerunners of what we now call UFO encounters.
Paleo-abductions, like ancient alien encounters.
Sort of. For instance, some of the most ancient cave paintings found all over the world bear an almost uncanny resemblance to modern descriptions of aliens, particularly figures with those disproportionately large heads and oversized dark eyes.
Huh. So that image isn't just a modern invention.
It suggests a consistent visual archetype that transcends time and geography.
So it's not just a product of our modern technological age, but maybe something woven into the very fabric of human history, resonating across millennia.
Exactly. And consider our holy texts, for example. The Bible, a cornerstone of Western civilization, contains numerous stories that many researchers, especially ancient astronaut theorists, interpret as literal alien encounters.
Like Ezekiel's wheel.
Precisely. Ezekiel's famous vision of a wheel within a wheel, this complex, multi-layered aerial phenomenon. Some see it as a detailed description of an advanced craft. Or Moses' encounters with the pillar of cloud and pillar of fire leading the Israelites.
Described as anomalous aerial phenomena providing guidance.
Right, even the chariots of fire ascending to the heavens. And the Romans, during their vast empire, they recorded sightings of flying shields. Objects that looked like their battle shields but moved inexplicably through the sky.
Flying shields.
Wow. Ancient astronaut theorists like Erich von Däniken famously posited that these were early UFOs, and the beings encountered were similar types of extraterrestrial or other dimensional entities visiting Earth.
The analogy they often use is like Columbus arriving, right? Being seen as gods by indigenous people because of their ships and technology.
Exactly that analogy. Just as explorers like Columbus or Captain Cook were revered as gods when they arrived in their massive canoe, wearing strange clothes, different skin color, ancient peoples might have similarly revered these mysterious visitors from the sky as divine, unable to comprehend their advanced tech.
That's a powerful analogy. It really reframes how we might look at some historical accounts.
And it's not limited to the Bible or Western antiquity. The Hindu Mahabharata, one of the longest epic poems ever, describes ancient wars between seemingly divine or advanced races.
Right, I've heard about this, with descriptions of incredible weaponry.
Weaponry eerily reminiscent of guided rockets, beam weapons, even something that sounds disturbingly like nuclear devices. Technologies that, based on descriptions, seem far beyond anything known on Earth at that time. It certainly expands the scope of potential ancient interactions.
Beam weapons and nuclear devices in ancient texts. That's quite a leap from simple flying shields. It suggests a more complex, maybe even destructive interaction.
It definitely broadens the scope of inquiry. Moving into more recent history, medieval tales also offer fascinating parallels. Figures like the succubus and incubus.
Often associated with sleep paralysis and sexual encounters in folklore.
Exactly. They're strikingly reminiscent of modern alien visitations. These stories describe malignant entities coming in sleep, causing terrifying paralysis, sometimes engaging in sexual acts, leading to exhaustion and distress.
The feelings of being unable to move, scream, the weight on the chest, very similar to sleep paralysis symptoms, but also common in abduction accounts.
Very similar. And likewise, ancient European folklore, full of tales of fairies, elves, changelings, often describes people being taken to another realm, subjected to strange tests, then returned, maybe subtly altered, or having experienced missing time after contact with non-human humanoids.
So the descriptions change fairies, gods, aliens, but the core experience of missing time, contact with non-human beings, seems consistent.
Precisely. The underlying experience seems remarkably consistent across cultures and time, and while widespread public attention is largely a modern thing, really kicking off in the 1960s, there were intriguing early modern cases that preceded this. UFO researcher Jerome Clark called them paleo-abductions.
Like what? Any specific examples?
Well, there's an account from an 1897 Stockton, California Daily Mail newspaper. It details how a Colonel H.G. Shaw and his friend claimed they were harassed and nearly kidnapped by 3 tall, slender humanoids covered in fine, downy hair.
Nearly kidnapped.
Okay.
By hairy humanoids in 1897.
According to the report, yes. The beings tried to drag them away until the men escaped. Then, in 1955, Harold T. Wilkins' book Flying Saucers Uncensored reported the mysterious disappearance of Carl Hunrath and Wilbur Wilkinson, a puzzling case that quickly led to speculation of abduction by flying saucers long before the term was common.
And the 1950s also had the contactees, right?
Yeah.
But they were different.
Yes, the 50s saw a wave of contactee cases. Individuals claiming contact, often receiving benevolent messages or spiritual guidance. But these narratives are generally seen as distinct from typical abductions, more voluntary, positive, communicative, rather than the involuntary, often invasive experiences.
And then everything truly changed with one specific case, didn't it? The one that really kicked off the modern understanding, introduced that iconic alien image.
Yes, the prototypical case. The one that generated widespread publicity and fundamentally set the stage was a Betty and Barney Hill abduction in 1961.
New Hampshire, right, on a rural road.
That's the one. It was perhaps the first time the claimants, Betty and Barney, described beings that later became universally known as the Greys, those small, gray-skinned entities with the large black, almond-shaped eyes and bulbous heads.
And they explicitly said they were extraterrestrial.
Crucially, yes. Coming from a star map, Betty later drew under hypnosis. It was their detailed, often traumatic accounts, initially recovered through hypnotic regression because of missing time, that launched the entire modern mythos of alien abduction into public consciousness.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Now that we've laid the groundwork, defining the phenomenon, tracing its historical echoes, let's dive into some of those iconic modern cases. The chilling personal testimonies that have really shaped public perception.
Right.
These aren't just vague claims. They're filled with terrifying specific details that make them incredibly compelling, even if you're skeptical.
Indeed. We have several compelling cases that offer a glimpse into the reported realities of abductions, complete with intricate details and sometimes intriguing corroborations. Let's start with one of the most famous, perhaps the quintessential modern abduction story, the Travis Walton abduction from 1975.
Fire in the Sky, right?
Yeah.
The movie was based on that.
Exactly. The context here is crucial. November 5th, 1975, deep within the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest in Arizona, 6 U.S. Forest Service workers, driving home, witnessed something extraordinary.
6 witnesses. That's important.
Very. They saw a large, silvery, disc-shaped object, described as smooth as glass, glowing, reflective, hovering silently about 20 feet off the ground, emitting this eerie luminescence.
So multiple witnesses right from the start, a whole crew. That's already significant, moving beyond just one person's account.
Absolutely. And the incident itself is dramatic, almost cinematic. Travis, against the warnings of his uneasy co-workers, felt this irresistible urge to approach the craft.
Why would he do that?
He couldn't explain it. He reported hearing loud internal vibrations from the object. Then suddenly, a brilliant blue-green light shot out from the disc, hitting him directly in the chest and head.
Hit him?
He described being violently catapulted backwards several feet, feeling what he called the numbing force of a blow that felt like a high-voltage electrocution. His mind sank quickly into unfeeling blackness.
And his crew?
Terrified, believing Travis was dead or fatally injured, they fled the scene in panic. When they came back, moments later, Travis and the object were both gone.
Gone. Just like that. And his account of what happened next after that jolt, that's the really bizarre, harrowing part, isn't it? 5 days of missing time.
It is, indeed. Travis's account, meticulously documented in his book Fire in the Sky, describes waking up in what seemed like a medical office or lab. Totally disoriented. Strange, triangular ceiling pulsing with light.
And the beings.
He was surrounded by 3 short, humanoid beings, under 5 feet tall, unnervingly large, dark brown eyes, abnormally large heads, skinny limbs, wearing soft, billowy orange-brown overalls. These were the grays that would become so iconic.
And what did he do?
Overwhelmed by terror, he lashed out, attacked them. They retreated hastily. As he frantically tried to escape, he encountered a large, muscular man in a helmet who seemed to be in charge.
A human. Or human-like.
Human-like, it seems. This figure forced him out of the medical room into a vast, hangar-like area with other saucer-shaped objects, then into another room where he saw 3 more people, 2 men, 1 woman, strikingly different.
Different how?
He described them as very good-looking, smooth-skinned and blemishless, the epitome of their gender, tall and fair. These humanoids, with an unsettling calmness, gently pushed him onto a table, placed a soft, suffocating mask over his mouth and nose. Then he passed out again.
And woke up.
5 days later, lying face down on the cold ground in Heber, Arizona, disoriented, alone, he saw a silvery disk hover briefly above the road, then silently shoot up into the sky and vanish, left with this unfathomable 5-day gap in his memory.
5 days. And during that agonizing time, his crew was actually under intense investigation, right?
Yeah.
Even suspected of foul play.
That's right. They were under immense pressure.
So what about the evidence for this extraordinary claim? How did it stand up to scrutiny?
Well, the evidence surrounding the Travis Walton case is intriguing, and it's been debated for decades. During the initial police investigation, his entire crew underwent psychiatric tests and polygraphs, lie detectors. Crucially, none of them confessed to faking it. All their lie detector tests, plus Travis's later official ones by professional polygraphers, came back either passing or inconclusive.
Inconclusive isn't exactly proof, but it's not failure either.
Right. One psychiatrist, initially skeptical, suspected it was all in Travis's imagination, but couldn't explain why the other 5 crew members corroborated the sighting and disappearance so consistently, risking their jobs and reputations.
Anything else? Any physical evidence?
Years later, yes. An additional fascinating piece emerged. It was discovered that trees nearest to where the UFO hovered showed a significantly higher wood fiber growth rate, 36 times higher than normal in the growth rings after the incident.
The 36 times higher.
Yes, and this thickened, accelerated growth was only observed on the side of the trees directly facing where the craft allegedly was, suggests an intense localized energy source.
That's weirdly specific. What about the polygraph he supposedly failed later?
Yeah, he did take one years later on a game show, which deemed him untruthful. But many independent investigators consider the earlier, official, more controlled tests more credible, especially given the consistent crew testimonies and that unexplained tree growth anomaly.
It's a lot to process. A compelling mix of testimony and some physical oddities. Now let's turn to another chilling incident a couple of years earlier, but with a similar dramatic feel. The Pascagoula abduction.
Ah, yes, Pascagoula, Mississippi, 1973. 2 working men, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, fishing off a pier in the Pascagoula River.
Just a normal evening then.
Until it wasn't. Their peaceful evening was shattered when they heard this peculiar zipping sound overhead, saw vivid blue flashing lights. Moments later, a large, oval-shaped disc, about 30 feet across, descended and hovered near them.
And things came out.
3 bizarre creatures emerged, roughly 5 feet tall. Gray, wrinkled skin, almost elephantine texture, they said. No visible legs, just an appendage like a foot. Hands ending in crab-like claws.
Crab claws, that's specific.
Ek.
And their faces.
Featureless, except for pointed noses, thin slits for mouths, and what looked like ears. They moved with a strange, hovering gait, took both men aboard the craft for a physical exam.
What did they remember from inside?
Being floated, not walking, into a brightly lit room. Large, eye-like instruments moving over their bodies. Then they were dropped off back on the riverbank, bewildered. Both had observable, unexplained puncture wounds on their bodies.
Puncture wounds. And did they report it?
Immediately. Visibly shaken, they went straight to the local sheriff. Despite intense scrutiny and skepticism, both men passed polygraphs, consistently maintaining their account was true.
And the community reaction?
The incident resonated so deeply there that a historical marker was later placed on the riverbank to honor the story's legacy. It shows the perceived authenticity within the local community.
Wow. Okay, what about the Linda Napolitano abduction? That one has some particularly unique and debated corroborating elements, right? Pushing the boundaries of evidence.
Yes. The Linda Napolitano case from 1989 in New York City is very well known, largely due to the extensive work of ufologist Bud Hopkins. Linda claimed she woke around 3:15 a.m. to find 3 short, gray aliens around her bed.
Grays again.
Yes. Overwhelmed by paralysis, couldn't wake her husband, perceived them telling her telepathically to be quiet, not resist. Then the 3 beings levitated her from her 12th story apartment window.
Out the window, from the 12th floor.
That's her account. Lifted upwards in a vivid blue-white light outside her building into a large clam-shaped spaceship waiting high above. Once inside, she reported a physical examination, including a chilling procedure where a cylindrical instrument was inserted deep inside her nose, caused significant discomfort.
And then she just woke up back in bed.
Woke up nearly 2 hours later, back in bed, with a vague, disturbing memory of what happened.
And there was physical evidence related to the nose, wasn't there? That's a key detail.
Yes, that's a key piece here. 2 years later, in 1991, Linda gave Bud Hopkins an X-ray of her nose. It clearly showed a cylindrical object embedded in her nasal cavity with spiraling extensions, almost like a tiny screw or sensor.
An actual object on an X-ray. Was it removed?
A nose and throat specialist later confirmed the object was gone, but also noted a conspicuous ridge of built-up cartilage where it had been embedded, indicating something foreign had been present there.
Okay, that's pretty compelling. But what about the controversial witnesses?
Right. That's what makes this case famous and highly debated. Hopkins claimed he received anonymous letters from 2 police officers. They stated they were on security detail for an important political figure, widely believed to be UN Secretary General Javier Pérez de Cuellar, in a nearby building.
And they saw her.
They claimed to have seen Linda being levitated in a blue light alongside 3 strange non-human beings. Now, Hopkins never physically met these officers, only corresponded via letters, which raises some hoax concerns and makes verification difficult.
Yeah, that sounds a bit shaky.
It does. But UFO researcher Sean F. Mears later cited as many as 23 public witnesses to the event, including an investigative reporter from the New York Post, which further complicates simply dismissing it. Linda herself often said, "If I was hallucinating, then the witnesses saw my hallucination. That sounds crazier than the whole abduction phenomenon itself." Captured her dilemma perfectly.
That really adds a unique and perplexing layer. What about cases where the abductee never returned, just vanished? The Frederick Valentich disappearance sounds incredibly ominous.
It is chilling precisely because there's no return, just that haunting final transmission. Frederick Valentich, 20 years old, an instructor pilot, experienced for his age, flying a routine training flight over Bass Strait, Australia in 1978.
What happened?
At 7:06 p.m., he contacted air traffic control, calmly reported a large unknown aircraft flying about 1,000 feet directly above him, described it moving incredibly fast, 4 bright lights, said, "It's playing some sort of game, it's hovering on top of me, and it's got a green light and sort of a metallic-like. It's all shiny and open, it's not an aircraft."
Not an aircraft. That's pretty definitive.
He continued describing it orbiting above him, baffling him. Then he said, "It's just vanished." But seconds later, his voice filled with urgency. "That strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft."
And the last transmission.
Around 7:12 p.m., followed by 17 seconds of an eerie, loud, metallic scraping sound. Then complete silence. Frederick and his Cessna 182 plane disappeared without a trace. Extensive searches, nothing found. The official investigation by the Australian Department of Transport concluded the reason for the disappearance of the aircraft has not been determined. An open mystery.
No trace at all. That's almost more terrifying than being returned. No closure, no explanation.
Indeed. While alternative theories exist, disorientation, suicide, though no evidence, a meteor strike there are strong counter-arguments. Cessna 182s, like his, are designed to float for an extended period after a crash. A complete, immediate vanish is highly unlikely.
Any other strange factors?
UFO historian Reg Watson found numerous credible reports of cigar-shaped UFO sightings near King Island in Bass Strait for 2 months before Valentich disappeared. Suggests ongoing anomalous activity. And most unsettlingly, a local farmer even claimed to have seen Valentich's plane stuck to the side of a large, dark craft the morning after he vanished.
Stuck to the side. Wow.
Plus, a photo taken by a tourist 20 minutes before his disappearance from the coast nearby shows a strange, indistinct shape in the sky. Adds another layer to the enduring intrigue.
It's those specific unexplainable details and the corroborating accounts, however indirect, that make these stories so compelling. Now let's move on to Karina Sables. Her experiences seem to recur throughout her life, building this complex, lifelong narrative.
Karina Sables' experiences truly span decades, offering a comprehensive, chilling, and often corroborated narrative. In 1991, she and her then-boyfriend were driving, saw a massive, silent, boomerang-shaped craft, estimated size of a football field, hovering over her apartment in British Columbia.
Silent. That big.
That's the report. The sighting was so profound they both experienced missing time, though Karina only remembered fragments initially. The incident was so disturbing, her boyfriend ended their relationship, unable to cope.
And the corroboration.
Crucially, multiple independent witnesses in the area reported seeing strikingly similar craft that same evening, lends significant external validation.
So shared sightings, not just her personal experience. That moves it beyond individual perception.
Exactly. And this 1991 incident triggered deeply buried childhood memories for Karina. She recalled playing hide-and-seek in 1969, suddenly feeling inexplicably chased, followed by missing time. Her parents said she'd been gone longer than she remembered. Later, she found strange marks on her body.
And other childhood memories.
One night, waking to see a mysterious, non-human creature in her house. Years later, her young daughter spontaneously drew a picture of a similar green, pumpkin-headed doctor alien consistent with Karina's repressed memories. Strongly suggests a recurring pattern across generations.
That's incredibly eerie. Did she recall being taken in 1991?
Under hypnotic regression, yes. Being taken inside the craft, tied up, examined by a gray alien. Most disturbingly, recalling being in a room full of human fetuses.
Fetuses? Oh, wow.
This solidified her belief in human-alien hybridization programs and phantom pregnancies, reinforced by her own long-standing reproductive problems and discovering her mother had similar unexplained issues. It aligns with Dr. David Jacobs' research on potential bloodline monitoring.
Bloodline monitoring.
Yeah.
Like they're tracking families. And the experiences continued into her adult life, even with others present.
They did. In 2003, Karina and her friend Jane were stargazing remotely. Saw 3 triangular lights that transformed, turned neon green, hovered above them. As the lights settled, their car ignitions suddenly failed.
Car died. Classic UFO trope.
Indeed. Then 5 slender, gray-shouldered creatures, about 4 feet tall, began approaching their vehicle. Both women experienced an intense electric shock sensation jolting through their bodies. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the car inexplicably restarted. They soon realized they'd lost 30 minutes.
Physical marks again.
The next day, yes. Strange markings and bruises. Karina had a large bruise on her left breast and foot. Jane had a circular burn mark like radiation burn. Both had distinct 3-finger marks on their thighs.
3-finger marks.
Oh.
And the generational link continued.
To add to the puzzle, Karina's 18-year-old son later had a similar triangular mark on his back. And at age 9, he'd suffered a mystery spine infection that baffled doctors. Further supports Jacobs' theory of ongoing bloodline monitoring.
And her credibility. Tests. Other witnesses.
Karina passed psychological evaluations and a polygraph, consistently affirming her experiences. Plus, numerous independent witnesses supported her UFO sightings, over 200 reports documented by investigators in BC around the time of her 2003 incident. Suggests a broader pattern.
It's the sheer consistency, the physical manifestations, the shared witness observations. It truly makes you wonder. And it's not just the dramatic, high-profile cases. Many anonymous accounts also describe equally bizarre sensory disturbances, even poltergeist stuff in their homes.
That's right. Beyond the iconic cases, a vast number of experiencers, often anonymous due to fear of ridicule, report a chilling suite of strange occurrences. Persistent ringing, beeping, clicking sounds seemingly from inside their heads.
Inside their heads, not external.
That's the report. Many describe a strong, acrid smell of sulfur or unsettled unsettling internal vibrations throughout their bodies. Some even describe objects moving by themselves, pictures falling, electronics malfunctioning without cause phenomena often linked to poltergeist activity. These specific sensory details challenge simple misidentification.
Can you share one of these anonymous accounts?
Take Joe Keel's account from 1989. Woke paralyzed on his stomach, immense pressure pushing down. In his TV reflection, saw a small, dark, non-human figure, large head, slender body sitting on his back.
On his back, oh my God.
As he watched, the TV slowly rotated on its stand, blocking his view. Then sharp, intense pain in his lower back, lost consciousness. Woke later with profound brain fog, a distinct, small, red, triangular mark on his back, fresh, tender. And the TV was in a different position.
A physical mark and a moved object. He insisted it wasn't sleep paralysis.
Insisted he'd never experienced it before or since. The physical evidence strongly suggested it wasn't just a dream or psychological event.
That's incredibly disturbing. Tangible evidence, even in a personal account.
Then there's Kevin Jones and his girlfriend Claire in the early 2000s. Kevin started seeing small, black, shadowy figures in his peripheral vision. Vanished when he tried to focus. Claire later admitted experiencing the same thing.
Both saw them. Okay.
Over about a week, their apartment became anomalous. Items falling, pictures dropping, sofa cushions inexplicably rearranged into strange geometric formations like pentagons.
Pentagons? Why?
No idea. One night, both woke simultaneously to a distinct metallic beeping sound, seeming to come from inside their heads. A sound their dogs didn't react to.
Inside again. Not auditory hallucination if the dogs didn't hear it.
Suggests not. Next day, Claire found a sore patch on her stomach. Kevin felt overwhelming unease. Both reported vivid, disturbing dreams of weird-looking people. Kevin's escalating insomnia led him to hypnotic regression.
And what did he recall?
Waking paralyzed by a loud thud, seeing a terrifying black silhouette at the foot of the bed. Then, inexplicably, Claire floating silently beside another silhouette, moving out of the room, paralyzed, terrified.
Floating again.
Kevin himself was then floated towards a third figure in the hallway, short frame, large, gray-colored head. He blacked out after seeing a blurred, indistinct face close to his eyes. While hypnosis is an exact science, Kevin remains adamant it wasn't a dream.
And a similar shorter one from someone named Manny.
Precisely. Manny, 2005, jokingly told a friend who claimed alien contact he'd be open to meeting them. That summer, woke abruptly to intense buzzing, felt distinct pressure on his hand, saw a spindly white hand moving away from his in the darkness. Room empty.
Just the ham.
Just the hand and the buzzing. Happened 2 more times over following weeks, deeply disturbing him, until he finally told his friend to ask them to stop. After that, it never recurred.
So it stopped when he asked. That's
Oh, yeah.
interesting. Shows some responsiveness.
Curious, isn't it? What's crucial across these anonymous accounts, and many others, is that a significant number happen while subjects are wide awake, fully conscious, or present tangible physical evidence. Directly challenges easy explanations like sleep paralysis, makes it much harder to simply dismiss.
So, okay. What does this all mean? We've heard these chilling accounts of what happened to people, but what do we know about the entities themselves, if anything? And maybe more importantly, why are they here? What could possibly motivate such widespread, recurring, often invasive interactions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The subculture around abductions and UFOs has, over decades, developed the surprisingly detailed mythos about the various types of aliens reported and their potential motivations.
And the most common type is?
The most common, consistently described across the vast majority of cases, Hill, Walton, Karina Sables, are the Greys. Almost universally portrayed as small, 3 to 5 feet tall, smooth gray skin, disproportionately large black almond-shaped eyes, big bulbous heads, skinny limbs.
The iconic image. Are there others mentioned frequently?
Beyond the pervasive grays, the broader alien mythos also mentions other distinct types. Reptilians, often depicted as larger, scaly, sometimes more malevolent, and Nordics, described as human-like, tall, fair-skinned, often blonde, sometimes seen as benevolent, sometimes more deceptive.
And there are also the Pleiadians, I understand. Sometimes described differently, maybe more spiritually.
Yes, the Pleiadians are particularly fascinating. Described as tall, typically around 7 feet, distinctly humanoid, primarily blonde hair, though some mention darker hair. According to some researchers and experiencers, they're believed to come from the Pleiades star cluster, about 444 light-years away.
And the purpose?
One theory suggests they're distant human cousins, aiming to spread their DNA and perhaps spiritual consciousness via a store seed program. One experiencer, Elizabeth, described her Pleiadian encounter as overwhelmingly peaceful, spiritually enlightening. Believed their mission was fostering unity consciousness for humanity.
Sounds positive, but not always.
No. Another witness, Mary Edwards, tragically linked Pleiadians to traumatic human-alien hybridization programs and reported fetus extraction, suggests a more complex, potentially darker agenda.
And Travis Walton saw different human-like beings, too, after the Greys.
Right. He encountered those good-looking, muscular humanoids, described as the epitome of their gender, smooth-skinned and blemishless. Suggests maybe a different, perhaps supervisory role in an alien hierarchy.
So, a definite variety reported, not just one type. What about their origins? Always outer space, traveling vast distances.
While the most common theory is outer space, distant planets, interstellar travel, there's a more complex, increasingly discussed theory.
Which is?
That they might use an interdimensional corridor or vortex to reach Earth. Think of it like a shortcut through different dimensions or realities. This theory suggests they can fold space-time, allowing them to leave their dimension and arrive in ours instantaneously, not traversing cosmic distances.
Whoa. So they might not even be from our universe at all, parallel dimensions.
That's the implication. It adds another profound layer of mystery.
That's a truly mind-bending concept. Okay, their motivations. Why are they doing this? What's the ultimate purpose behind these often terrifying encounters?
Their motivations are perhaps the most unsettling and debated aspect, a subject of much conjecture. Clearly, one prominent motivation centers on a deep interest in our bodies.
The medical procedures.
Exactly. Most abductees consistently describe procedures appearing distinctly medical, focusing on our genetic makeup, biological processes, DNA, ova, sperm extraction, like Mary Edwards describing electrodes for egg extraction, or Robert Fullington recalling DNA extraction under hypnosis, strongly suggests they're gathering biological data.
So it's like a systematic scientific study on humans.
In part, yes, that seems a significant component, but beyond purely biological interest, they also appear profoundly concerned with our psychological makeup, our attitudes towards the environment, society, even spiritual development.
Concerned how? Do they communicate this?
In some documented cases, they seem to intervene, subtly or overtly directing an experiencer's life. One experiencer recounted the beings becoming very interested in things like whom I was dating, even seeming to intentionally scare away a woman they deemed not right for him.
They interfered in his dating life.
How? He described being in the woods with his girlfriend, suddenly paralyzed. The entities seemingly inspected her, communicated telepathically, no, she's no good, not this one, then vanished. That's an extraordinary level of intervention, extending into deeply personal areas.
That's incredible, beyond mere observation. And then there's the highly controversial yet persistently reported theory of hybridization programs. This is maybe the most unsettling motivation proposed.
This is indeed perhaps the most unsettling and widely discussed motivation. Influential researchers like Bud Hopkins and Dr. David Jacobs documented cases leading them to popularize the idea of an elaborate scheme to create human-alien hybrids for their own purposes, essentially a large-scale harvest of genetic material.
And the evidence for this? Phantom pregnancies.
Numerous anecdotal reports of phantom pregnancies, women experiencing pregnancy symptoms, then the fetus inexplicably vanishes related to UFO encounters, dating back to the 60s. Harrowing accounts of stolen fetuses, like from Donna Lee and Mary Edwards describing her body being rewired for this purpose. The pervasive nature suggests a systematic interbreeding effort, raising profound ethical questions if true.
And beyond hybridization. Other theories.
Many theorists believe Earth life is continuously monitored, humans as part of a long-term experiment, maybe like how we monitor animal populations. And then there's the ancient astronaut theory.
Suggesting humans themselves might be alien interventions. Hybrids.
Exactly. Created by genetically engineering alien DNA with simian creatures on Earth, offers a provocative interpretation of texts like Genesis, let us make them in our image. Who is us?
That's a profound, almost existential thought. Our very existence part of an alien agenda puts a very different spin on everything.
It definitely broadens the inquiry and challenges fundamental assumptions.
Okay, given these potential motivations, medical, psychological, hybridization, is there a typical sequence of events? What does the abduction process generally look like? Is there a kind of standard operating procedure?
Based on extensive research, particularly by figures like Dr. David Jacobs interviewing hundreds, there does appear to be a remarkably consistent standard scenario, often described as precisely orchestrated, almost clinical, predetermined procedures, as if the beings are purely task-oriented, showing no aspect of their lives outside performing these procedures. Chillingly efficient.
Chillingly efficient. Okay, walk us through this standard scenario, the stages.
First stage is capture. The abductee is typically rendered completely incapable of resisting, often intense full-body paralysis or free will overridden. They're then taken from their surroundings, often bed or home, to an apparent alien spacecraft.
Levitation?
Sometimes through levitation, floating out a window or through a wall, or they might just suddenly find themselves on board, no memory of the transition. Elizabeth, for instance, described being dragged from bed, beings on each ankle and wrist, carried into the hallway. Next thing she knew, floating outside her window 3 stories up, bright pulsating light above, then effortlessly floating upwards into the craft.
Sudden loss of control, disorienting change of environment. What comes next? On board.
Following capture is the often traumatic examination phase. This is where physiological and psychological procedures happen. Medical assessments, invasive sampling, training, testing, even, controversially, sexual liaisons, perhaps, for reproduction hybridization.
What kind of procedures?
Highly invasive ones. Elizabeth recalled being strapped into a stiff metal chair, paralyzed but fully aware, saw a machine insert a cylindrical mechanism getting smaller and smaller into her right ear, felt they were implanting something, chipping her.
Chipping, like for tracking.
Possibly monitoring or communication. Another experiencer described a terrifying stickiness pulled very slowly across my face. Not painful, but very, very weird. Violating. One witness felt sharp pain on their arm, saw a cut appear, then watched astonished as it healed instantly, leaving only a faint scar. Suggests incredibly advanced medical tech or biological manipulation. Focus is consistently on understanding or altering the human body, especially reproductive and genetic functions.
Invasive indeed. Is there also communication? Or purely clinical?
Yes. The third stage is often a conference or communication phase. Abductors communicate, most often described as telepathic, direct mental transfer of thoughts, images, instructions. No verbal speech.
What do they communicate?
Sometimes they direct the abductee to interact with specific individuals, other human-looking hybrids, or other abductees for training or purpose. Not always a dialogue, can be direct information transfer, warnings, prophecies. Elizabeth explicitly stated a Pleiadian being spoke telepathically, conveying complex concepts about unity consciousness. Others describe tasks given, insights about humanity's future.
And after these procedures and communications, are they always returned? Or do they sometimes get, like, a tour?
Sometimes. In some cases, abductees are given a tour of the ship. Not universal. Might be a brief glimpse or a more extended guided experience. Purpose varies: reassurance, disorientation, maybe education about their tech.
And finally, the return. What happens then? Immediate effects.
Final stage is return. Abductees brought back to Earth. Sometimes exact locations, sometimes slightly different, disoriented, often emerge with new, unexplained injuries, marks profound exhaustion. A key, pervasive characteristic is rapid memory loss.
The missing time again.
Right. Majority of the experience often forgotten. Maybe deliberate alien intervention, maybe psychological coping due to overwhelming fear trauma, leads directly to missing time, hours, sometimes days unaccounted for. As one experiencer put it, after return, we were switched back on, so to speak, and the craft had departed. These fragmented memories, physical anomalies, time gaps often prompt individuals to seek understanding, sometimes leading to discovering the full scope via hypnotic regression.
It's a remarkably consistent pattern, very procedural, almost clinical. But what are the lasting effects? The human toll of an alien abduction. It must be profound.
The impacts are indeed profound, often deeply traumatic, reverberating through an individual's entire life. Professor John Edward Mack, a highly respected Harvard psychiatrist, Pulitzer winner, extensively investigated numerous compelling cases.
What did he conclude?
Famously concluded that post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, was the only adequate psychiatric phenomenon to explain the patient's symptoms in several of the most compelling cases he studied. This implies the abductee genuinely believed the remembered frightening incident truly occurred, experiencing it as real-life trauma, not delusion.
So it's not just a bad dream or fabrication.
Yeah.
Their bodies and minds react as though they survived profound trauma.
Exactly. Psychologically, abductees often experience profound shock, disbelief. They resist the idea it's true, prefer to think it's a dream, hallucination, mental illness, because the reality is so shattering to their notion of reality. fundamentally dismantles their worldview.
Greetings.
Often intense fear, pervasive anxiety, debilitating paranoia, severe difficulty sleeping. Kevin, for instance, developed debilitating insomnia, needing lights on, dogs in the room, barricading doors, extreme fear, a lasting feeling of vulnerability. As one put it, their safety can never be guaranteed again. The world no longer feels secure.
But it's not always negative. Some feel chosen.
Paradoxically, yes. Some report a sense of being chosen or selected for a purpose, like Karina Sables, grappling with a complex mix of trauma and unique significance.
And physically, beyond the immediate marks, what are lasting effects?
Physically, equally disturbing and perplexing, frequent unexplained marks or injuries appearing immediately after or later, no memory how, Joe Keel's triangular mark, Kevin and Claire's sore spots, Karina Sable's bruises, burn marks, scoop marks, small, perfect circular depressions, her son's similar triangular mark, and mystery spine infection.
And the implants, are those real?
Claims of alien implants, physical objects reportedly placed in the body. Dr. Roger Lear, a podiatrist, claims to have surgically removed several. Notes these objects, unlike medical implants, don't cause inflammation infection. They put out an electromagnetic field measurable on a Gauss meter.
Indicating what? Biotelemetry, mind control.
Potential for biotelemetry, remote biological monitoring. Even telepresence may be projecting presence or influence. Then there are frequent distressing reports of phantom pregnancies, explicit fetus extraction, like Donna Lee, Mary Edwards talking about being rewired.
But also miraculous healing sometimes.
On the other end, yes, some report miraculous healing, like Tracy Jones's surgery incision reportedly healing overnight, suggests advanced biological understanding or intervention.
It's a spectrum from traumatic to seemingly positive, but still not by choice or understanding. What about emotional and social repercussions?
Emotionally wide range? While trauma is common, some describe profound love, intense high like drugs or mystical experience, oneness with God, universe, even abductors. The perplexing question: is this Stockholm Syndrome genuine metaphysical change or medical psychological tampering?
And socially, the stigma must be huge.
Socially and professionally, significant repercussions due to intense stigma. Distance, suspicion from colleagues, friends, family, even job loss. Dr. Ronald Sprinkle, respected University of Wyoming psychologist, became convinced of the phenomenon, believed he was abducted, forced from his academic job in 1989. Shows the severe professional cost.
But some speak out. Educate.
Some bravely turn experiences into public education, like Dave Twitchell running TV radio shows, or find supportive environments, colleges, research groups to discuss openly without backlash.
It sounds incredibly isolating for many, especially at first.
It truly is. Common theme is profound difficulty sharing. Many preface stories with, "I've never told anybody this before," but fear of ridicule, disbelief, being labeled mentally unstable is immense. Many others deny experiences even to themselves for years, actively ignore them unless a new incident or memory fragment impacts their waking world.
This raises that important skeptical question. What about the mental health of abductees? Are they suffering from delusions, confabulations, underlying mental illnesses?
Crucial point, rigorously studied. The overwhelming conclusion from those working directly with experiencers. The majority of abductees do not appear deluded, confabulating, making up distorting memories unconsciously, lying, self-dramatizing, or suffering from clear diagnosable mental illness.
So they're generally psychologically normal.
While psychopathology might exist in isolated cases, like any population, extensive assessments, clinical exams, standardized psych tests consistently show that, as a group, abduction experiencers are no different from the general population in mental health profile. Some studies even suggest above-average intelligence and superior mental functioning.
And their reaction to hearing other stories?
Often profound shock and disbelief. Deep reluctance to accept it as true, precisely because it's so shattering to their notion of reality. Suggests they aren't easily convinced fantasists, but individuals grappling with something deeply unsettling, undeniably real to them, struggling to integrate it.
That's a powerful counter to a common skeptical argument. But okay, how do we know this is really happening? What are the other explanations skeptics propose? Natural skepticism comes into play, and it's vital to explore those alternatives.
Vital and responsible, absolutely. Skeptics rightly propose psychological explanations. hallucinations, temporary schizophrenia, epileptic seizures inducing altered states, parasomnia near sleep states like night terrors, and most commonly cited, sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis comes up a lot.
Frequently accepted by skeptics as a comprehensive explanation, common condition. Wake up unable to move, speak, vivid hallucinations, terrifying sense of presence, difficulty breathing. However, our source material explicitly states these experiences usually do not involve aliens.
And crucially,
many reported abductions occur while the subject is wide awake, fully conscious, not in a sleep-waking state. But Hopkins noted 33% of his cases happened while wide awake, like his sister walking into her room, seeing a blue light, suddenly finding herself on the end of her bed, no memory how, hadn't been asleep.
So while sleep paralysis might explain some aspects of some cases, it can't account for all of them, especially waking experiences or physical evidence ones.
Precisely. Other psychological factors cited: confirmation bias, interpreting ambiguity to support beliefs, suggestibility, influenced by questions ideas, general cultural influence, pervasive UFO alien narratives in media,
and the memory implant idea. That sounds wild.
Fascinating and unsettling. The Planet Weird experiment. Hypnotist placed a suggestion, light, figure into a skeptic's mind. Upon waking, subject reported a full-blown abduction memory taken aboard, examined, remained utterly convinced of its reality, even after being told it was suggested.
What does that imply?
Raises profound questions. Could these entities interact directly with our minds or consciousness, not just physically? Could that explain the elusiveness of definitive physical proof?
A deeply philosophical thought interaction within consciousness itself, which leads to the biggest hurdle for skeptics in mainstream science: the persistent lack of definitive, irrefutable, independently verifiable physical evidence.
Undeniably the core challenge, the most significant contention. Proving abduction scientifically is incredibly difficult without obvious, repeatable physical evidence. When an experiencer returns, all he has to prove his encounter are the fragments of memories left intact by the aliens, inherently subjective.
And attempts to record them.
Tried repeatedly. Camera simply failed, unexplained malfunctions, battery drain, just not capturing anything despite alleged events unfolding. Experiencers report being closely watched and controlled, often paralyzed or under mental influence, making it impossible to bring something back from the craft or gather reliable physical data inside. Plus, a general lack of physical objects or debris found from alleged UFO aliens.
So even with reports of physical marks, skeptics have alternative explanations. Reduces evidential weight.
Yes, exactly. Physical marks anomalies. Some suggest psychogenic origin created by the mind due to trauma, like stigmata, strange lights, misidentified drones with LEDs, increasingly common, or classified military experiments, especially near high UFO sighting areas.
Like the triangular lights Karina Sable saw. Could be experimental drones.
That's a possible skeptical explanation for the 2003 incident, yes. Drones were in use, less publicly known. Lack of consistent, repeatable, verifiable physical residue makes proof incredibly difficult.
And then there's the broader scientific question, the Fermi paradox. Hard to talk abductions without confronting the larger silence of the universe.
The Fermi paradox, the elephant in the cosmic room. Given the universe's vastness and age, probability of intelligent life elsewhere, why haven't we encountered obvious signs? The silence is deafening. Directly bears on the likelihood of complex alien civilizations advanced enough for abductions.
What are the main possible answers to the paradox?
3 main categories. 1, they are out there, we just haven't found them. Too far, detection difficult, tech beyond ours, signals undetectable. 2, they are out there but deliberately avoiding us or unable to communicate. Includes the unsettling zoo hypothesis, observing us like animals, avoiding contact, letting us develop naturally. Or their tech makes communication impossible, irrelevant. 3, the sobering one. They are not out there. Conditions for intelligent spacefaring life are so rare, civilizations unlikely elsewhere.
But most scientists still lean towards life existing elsewhere.
Yes, despite lack of definitive evidence, this enduring paradox underlines the elusiveness of proof for abductions, challenges us to consider alternatives for the observed silence.
It's clear this phenomenon, belief, skepticism, or in between, forces profound questions about reality, our place in the cosmos. Given the sheer number of reports, consistency, even subtle government shifts on UAPs, is this just a niche phenomenon, or is something much larger at play?
Connecting to the bigger picture, the scale is far from niche. Implications are global. Precise numbers, uncertain stigma, personal nature, but early studies like Hopkins found at least 1,700 claimants fitting a consistent pattern. Some controversial surveys argue maybe 5–6% of the general population might have experienced some form of abduction.
5–6%. That would be millions.
A truly huge number worldwide if true. Far too many to dismiss as delusional. And it's not static. Generations past, present, seemingly future, continue having these experiences regularly, whether officials acknowledge it or not. Points to something deeply embedded.
And government awareness. The persistent theory they know more.
Raises one of the most significant, unsettling questions. Are governments aware? Theories range widely. Aware but powerless, technologically outmatched. Or more frightening, in league with the aliens. Treaties allowing abductions for tech knowledge.
Many experiencers believe the government knows more but suppresses it.
Firmly believe that, yes. The government knows so much more than they're letting on. Organizations like MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, get astounding numbers of reports, 200 sightings a year in Michigan alone. Shows the volume governments would logically track.
What about official investigations like Project Blue Book?
Officially terminated in 1969, publicly concluded natural phenomenomized identifications, but their own lead scientific advisor, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, came to a different conclusion. Created his classification CE1, CE5, with CE4 for abductions believing it scientific evidence. More recently, the Cometa report in France, top scientists, military officials investigated cases, concluded UFO phenomenon is something real, even suggesting extraterrestrial hypothesis. These internal dissonances suggest complex relationship between official denial and internal understanding.
So even with denials, indications from within these systems suggest something unusual, unexplained is occurring. What would be the societal impact of full disclosure if the truth, the ET presence interaction became public?
If presence officially known, or aliens reveal themselves, likely in for some rough times globally. Speculation suggests wide spectrum of reactions. Many embrace with scientific curiosity, spiritual awakening, but a small percentage likely handle it very badly, potential violence, mayhem, societal breakdown like triggers for riots.
And the media reaction.
With modern internet media, immediate aftermath undoubtedly massive, clashing opinions, conspiracy theories, competing narratives, years of intense public debate, uncertainty, could be awful, profoundly destabilizing. However, most researchers also believe it'd be a crucial growth thing for humanity.
A necessary, painful step.
To get beyond this closed-minded view that we're the only ones, forced redefinition of our place, history, future, demanding collective maturity we might not possess. But long-term impact, once shock subsides, could lead to unprecedented scientific advancement, philosophical shifts, unified global purpose facing a larger unknown universe.
Societal upheaval on an unprecedented scale, profoundly altering collective consciousness. And despite all the research, compelling testimonies, persistent reports, still so many unanswered fundamental questions.
Absolutely. Full agenda of beings responsible remains shrouded in deep mystery. We're left wondering, are humans being genetically altered to change behavior attitudes towards the phenomenon, make us more amenable? Is society, grander sense, being directed by the extraterrestrials through subtle overt manipulation, shaping our development?
We may never know the full truth.
May never know complete truth of motivations, goals, full extent of interaction. However, each new case, recovered memory, scientific anomaly contributes to growing body of knowledge, perhaps preparing us incrementally for potential full disclosure. The phenomenon, acknowledged or ignored, simply continues, quietly reshaping lives, subtly challenging foundations of human reality.
This has been an absolutely wild journey, plunging deep into the profound, often unsettling world of alien abductions.
It really has covered a lot of ground.
From ancient tales echoing through millennia, to modern, terrifying accounts filled with bewildering details, physical traces, and those lingering, expansive questions about societal impact, the elusiveness of proof. We've covered an immense amount. Here's what really stands out when you dive deep into these sources. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or somewhere in between, the sheer consistency of these stories across cultures, centuries, it forces you to confront some unsettling possibilities about our place in the universe.
It really does make you think.
It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If these experiences are genuinely happening, even if only within the intricate landscape of the human mind, what does that tell us about the fundamental nature of reality itself? Or perhaps about the thin, permeable veil between our perceived world and something truly unknown, just beyond our grasp?
A profound question to ponder.
It certainly encourages continued curiosity and independent thought about the universe's greatest mysteries. Thank you for joining us on this unsettling yet undeniably captivating deep dive. And remember to subscribe and hit that like button to keep unlocking more explorations into the unexplained and intriguing.